So for this video, I'm just going to talk about a few tips with under eye creasing so I could respond to this. First off, I am so sorry that I'm just now getting to this. I had family visiting this last week, so that's why I haven't been filming, but I am ready to get back into things. So I want to be 100% transparent with you guys. If you have creases or fine lines underneath the eye, there is no foolproof way to get rid of them, but there are ways to conceal and try to prevent and kind of camouflage them. First tip is to try to figure out what your under eye needs. Is your under eye, does it ever get oily? Is it extremely dry? Does it get kind of like almost crusty when you put product over the top? Figure out what it needs first. So my under eye, I know you're super close, but I have these little creases right here, which most people do have these. Mine have just gotten a little bit deeper as I've gotten older. So the first tip is going to be your skin prep. Starting with your serums, I like to use a hyaluronic acid. I like the one from The Ordinary. I also like their buffet with copper peptides. This one also kind of helps plump the skin. Not as much as hyaluronic acid, but if you're just looking for just a little bit of a plumping and to kind of help with texture, this one's a good one. I also like the Plum Plump. This one is by Glow Recipe. And those serums I would actually put all over my face, but I would pat those underneath the eye to start the prepping. So now that you have one of those serums on, your skin's going to start to swell and get a little plump. Then you're going to want to go in and moisturize. If you're extremely dry, I recommend using an oil. This one is a hydration oil by NYX Cosmetics, which I love when my under eye is super dry. The one that I use the most is Lorac Cosmetic. This one is their Dewy Canvas Prep. Love this moisturizer, and I pack that underneath the eye after I've applied my serums. If you have normal to oily skin or normal to oily under eyes, then you're going to want to use a gel-based moisturizer. Now that you have your under eyes prepped and ready to go, now we can go ahead and apply our product. From there, you're going to figure out what type of under eye you actually want. Do you want it to be a little bit moist so that way you have more movement and it's a little bit more of a dewy finish? Do you want more of a matte finish? Because from there, that's where you're going to figure out what concealer you want to use. I prefer to work with more of a matte to satin finish, so I'm going to use my Juvia's Place concealer. This one just dries down really nicely, and because I'm super hydrated right now from the oil that I placed down, this is going to adhere really nicely to my under eye. So I'm just going to tap that right over where I want it. Now, I prefer to work with a damp sponge. You can also use a little brush. I just feel like the hydration from the sponge just kind of helps melt it into the skin a little bit more. Now, the key to the under eye is to only use your concealer. Do not overlap it with your foundation. If you do foundation first, just leave your under eye open and then apply the concealer over. You only want one layer of product under your eyes. You don't want double, because the more product, the more likely you will have creasing because it will get caked up underneath the eye. I was trying to squeeze this into one video, but I'm definitely not going to be able to. This was the first step. I'm going to tag part 2 in the comments, so that way you can just go there and watch part 2. So this is part 2 on how to conceal and camouflage the under eye creasing. If you haven't watched part 1, go ahead and watch that so that way you can get caught up to where we are right now. So there are 2 ways that I like to camouflage the under eye creasing when it comes to applying the powders over the concealer. So the first way I like to do it is I actually like to bring my eyeshadow down just to where my creasing actually is, because my eyeshadow will completely cover the creasing. Okay, so now that I have the eyeshadow on the lower lash line, you really cannot see the creases at all. All right, so here's what it looks like. Now you can see that it's all filled in. There's nothing actually creasing right there. Oops, it's still a little damp right here. If you're not wearing lower eyeshadow, then this is where you would just apply your foundation. Just don't bring the foundation over the concealer. Leave the concealer where it's at, and don't do a second layer of product with the foundation over the top of it. Just leave it on its own. I'm going to finish the rest of my face and then come back and we can talk about the powder over the under eye. But let me just kind of catch up real quick. Okay, so I just went ahead and placed my foundation all over my face. I haven't set it yet because this is where we are going to talk about the under eye. I'm just using the Juvia's Place setting powder. I like to just take a big fluffy brush and I just, ooh, it is everywhere and I'm wearing black. I just take it and I tap it and I just lightly press it into my skin with a tapping motion. Notice I'm just bringing it right up to the eyeshadow. I'm just tapping that in. I don't like to bake, so I don't like to put like a heavy layer of powder. I literally just dust it just to kind of set it. From this step, this is where I like to apply like my powder, blush, bronzer, that kind of thing. So let me do that and I'll be right back. All right, I just had to change up a few things because I was filming a tutorial for this eye look. So now that I have my powder on, everything underneath is looking really good. So I'm just going to pull down. I don't have any creasing at all. And like I said, this is only concealer right here with a lightly dusted powder. Now let's say that you've done all the tips I recommended in part 1 and in this video and it's still not working for you. This is my last and final tip that I would recommend for the creasing underneath the eye. So if you're using a really creamy concealer that doesn't really set itself and you don't want to put powder on and it's creasing on you, try using something that sets itself, like a mattifying concealer. And if you're opposite and you have a really dry under eye and it's creasing on you, more than likely it's just because the product is drying out your under eye and cracking on you. So if the tips I've already recommended don't improve the situation, this is going to be the last and final step that I would recommend. So now that I've laid my powder down, I have no creasing, but I have a little bit of a dry patch right here under my eye. So to revive the under eye, I'm going to use the hydration oil from NYX Cosmetic. You can use any oil that's meant for the skin over the top of the makeup. You're just going to take it and do a couple drops on the back of your hand. From here, just pat the product and make sure there's like no product at all on that sponge. And from there, just lightly dab over the dry area and my dry patch is gone. I hope you found this helpful. Thanks for watching.